This is part 2 of my perfect freestyle quadcopter build the Betaflight setup. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, there's a link in the video description where you can build this exact quadcopter that you're looking at now. My perfect freestyle build, no compromises, no holds barred. And if you're curious about how it flies, there's links down in the video description as well. Meanwhile, if you are finishing up the build and want to go through the Betaflight setup, this is the video for you. As a reminder, there are chapter breaks in the timeline, and you can click on the title of the current chapter to get a list of all the chapters on the right side of your screen, at least assuming you're on desktop. In addition, some of these sections are analog only if you're using analog VTX, and some are for DJI only. And for those chapters, the title of the chapter will have analog or DJI at the beginning of the title. Now it's time to set up Betaflight on this quadcopter. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flash the firmware to the latest. Here I am in the firmware flasher, and I'm going to need to plug in USB. Okay, much better. And we're going to pick the JB-F7 target. If you're using DJI, you can pick the JB-F7 DJI target. I'm going to pick JB-F7 regardless. There's actually a misconfiguration in the JB-F7 DJI target that still hasn't been fixed. So we're just going to do the JB-F7 regardless. We're going to load firmware and flash firmware. Alrighty. Let's just power cycle that and connect. We'll apply custom defaults as usual, as you do. And with the quadcopter flat, we'll calibrate the accelerometer as you do. Now normally, the very first thing I would do would be to get my receiver and my controller working and then set up the aux modes. I'm not going to do that right now because the receiver that I want to put in this quad is coming in the mail. I could pull one out of one of my other quads, but I don't want to do that. So we're going to go a slightly different direction this time, and we're going to start by setting up the video transmitter. This specific part is only going to be if you are using analog. So we'll go to the ports tab. And we have our video transmitter wired up to T5. So UART 5 is going to be smart. Oh, it already is. Golly. How about that? In fact, this should pretty much be ready to go in the ports tab. So then I will plug in and I will power up. Oh, the smoke stopper's going off. There we go. Sometimes the motor beeps set off the smoke stopper. Don't worry about that. Then we'll go to the video transmitter tab, and what we want to see is device ready. Yes, that will confirm that the flight controller is talking to the video transmitter. Next, we need to get the vTXTable for this video transmitter. Let me just look. I think I know which one it is, but let's just Google it. Yep, here looks like Rush Tank Solo. Looks like Oscar Leong has some vTXTables on his website. Thank you, Oscar, for archiving those. Okay, here it is. Wonderful. And let's copy this, and we'll go to the CLI and paste that in. Okay, and then we're going to see if this worked by going to the video transmitter tab, and we'll try race 1. That's the channel that we're at, that this is on. We'll hit save. Boom, race 1. And we also have, fantastic, we have a image from the camera too. That's great. The other thing I like to do when I'm doing a build is test that the output power is working. Sometimes you can get into a situation where the VTX will lock itself at its lowest output power, specifically if your vTXTable is not correct. To test that, I'm going to use this. This is the Immersion RC RF power meter. I've got a video reviewing it, and what we're going to do is we're going to plug it directly into this UFL cable coming off the video transmitter. And let's see here, we got 18 milliwatts. The power is set to 25. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to change it to 400 and hit save. And we got 229. Don't forget, there's no airflow here. This thing's heating up, so it's reducing its output power. We're not checking the output power. We're just seeing that the output power is changing and that our vTXTable is set correctly. Yep, we've gone up to 600-ish. This low power disarm option causes the quadcopter to go down to, I think it's 25 milliwatts. Maybe it's pit mode. We'll see. But before you arm the quad, especially with a very high powered video transmitter like this that is going to get super, super hot, I'm going to turn low power disarm on so that whenever I disarm the quad, it'll drop the output power down and help keep the video transmitter cool. We'll set that to max. And now we should see, yeah, now it goes up to the 25 milliwatt setting, and that will help. Keep it cool. Nice. Video transmitter is working. Great. Next, I'm going to set up my receiver. I'm going to go into the ports tab. I've wired my receiver to UART1, so I'm going to enable serial RX on UART1, and in fact, that's the default. And I'm going to go into the configuration tab, and I'm going to set up the correct receiver protocol for my receiver, and for Ghost, at least as of today, that's SRXL2. When Betaflight 3.0 comes out, or 4.3 comes out, there'll be a Ghost protocol here, but there isn't as of today. And then to get Ghost working, I also need to go set serial RX half duplex equals on, and type save. And at this point, we should have movement in the receiver tab. The next thing to do is to check my channel mapping and channel endpoints and set up aux modes. These are all things I've covered in many, many other videos, and this isn't really a beginner tutorial. I'll put links down in the video description for how you can set that stuff up if you don't know how to do it. What do we got left to do? Motors. We'll go to configuration tab, motor protocol, D-Shot 600. We do want bidirectional D-Shot. 14 motor poles is correct. Maximum arm angle, 180 degrees. These are all things you've seen me do before in other tutorials. We want, let's see, telemetry, SRXL2. Well, we'll turn it on. I'm not sure it works, but we would want it if we're using Crossfire Tracer or Ghost under Betaflight 4.3. That's all fine. Save and reboot. One thing that you are going to need to do is remap the motors, because we mounted the ESC the other way around, and here are the commands to do that. I'll also put them down in the video description if you want to copy paste them. And we'll just double check that that is all correct. 1, correct. 2, correct. 3, incorrect. 4, correct. 3, needs to be remapped. 3. Here in blheli, I'm going to set the motor timing to 25 degrees. I used to set it to auto, but I've changed that. Betaflight has changed and blheli has changed. So I've been trying out 25 degrees. And PWM frequency, I'm going to leave at 24K. You may choose to set that up to 48K if you want smoother running motors at the expense of low throttle stability. I've been trying it down at 24K for more low throttle stability. We'll right set up there. And then lastly, I am going to use the music editor to install my startup tone on my ESCs. And we will just go to ESC overview and double check this. It is all how it needs to be. Correct. Yes. If you want to know how to do that music, I've got a tutorial. I'll link it down in the video description, as you would expect. All right, and we're just going to double check that the motors all spin the right way. All right. Now I know you guys are going to want to see a PID tune for this, and I plan to send this off to one of the experts to give me the best possible PID tune. I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna tune it by feel, and I'll show you what I come up with. But we'll do a video later with like a perfect optimal PID tune. that's going to be for another day. I have put in my rates, and if you want to try out my rates, you're more than welcome to do that. Here they are. And there's a change I know I'm going to make, which I'm going to take the filter settings and move them to 1.5. We better be able to get away with that, or there's something seriously wrong. And I'm going to need to change these settings as well. 0, 250, 90, and 350 are how we set those up for this type of quad. I'm just going to save that. I think we're good. It's time to go back to the bench and button it up. Hey folks, Joshua for the future here. Don't forget to set your board alignment correctly. We need yaw degrees 180 because we flipped the board around 180 degrees. Yeah, don't be like Joshua from the past and have your quad flip out when you first try to fly it. Let's just make sure that's right. Correct, correct, okay. If you're using the DJI system, then here in the Ports tab, you're going to need to enable MSP on UART2, and that will allow your OSD and your VBAT to display in your goggles. You'll also need in the goggles to enable the Show Custom OSD option. After you do that, that should be working. Oh my God, I'm so ready to go fly this. Let's finish buttoning it up and then get out and fly. Let's install the last standoffs. We've got 2 more short standoffs and 2 long standoffs for the front. These 8mm screws are going to be used for the front bottom standoffs because those are the ones that are going to take the biggest hits in an impact. They're a little longer than the others that are used. Oh, and because it's a 3mm, of course, it's because it's a 3mm bottom plate. Very smart. I didn't put that together until just, I was like, why'd they send 8mm for the front? I guess it's because the front takes harder hits. Good thinking, guys. No, it's because the front has the frickin' 3mm plate. And we've got this bag of M3x6. And these are standard M3x6 button head. There are also some countersunk screws, which we'll use on the top plate. Next, we're going to install the 3D printed antenna holders on the rear standoffs, and exactly which antenna holders you use are going to depend on which type of receiver you've got and which type of video transmitter you're using. Thank you very much to Chris Ney, who designed all of these. There is a Thingiverse link down in the video description if you have a 3D printer and you want to print your own, or of course you can buy them from GetFPV. You'll pay a little more than if you printed them yourself, though. I'm going to be using this one, which is for Immersion RC Ghost, and this one, which is the standard SMA connector. And in fact, Chris designed them very cleverly. You're going to see they fit together very cleverly, so they take up the entire back standoff, so there's no confusion about, you know, what height they're going to be at. So for the Ghost antenna, we're just going to slide it in to this little slit in the 3D printed holder. Easy peasy. And it's going to slide down over the standoffs. So that's going to get pushed down all the way. It was pretty tight. It's a good thing it's TPU. It's got a little give in it. It was pretty tight. And then for the SMA, the exact way you do it is going to depend on your SMA pigtail. This SMA pigtail that comes with the Rush Tank Solo is tapped for an M2 screw. The Caddx Vista, I'm pretty sure, is an M2.5, and there are some of them out there that are M3, the TBS Unifier M3. Again, you're going to have some flexibility here because this is TPU, so if these screw holes aren't quite the size you need, you can just enlarge them slightly with like a soldering iron, just melt them out a little bit. You may need to put nuts on the back, depending on if your pigtail is tapped with threads or if it's just smooth. There are a bunch of different ones. I do really like this style of mount, though, that uses these 2 screws. The style of mount that uses the nut, I think, it's not as secure, and it's more stress. It allows the pigtail to rotate when you tighten down the antenna. So this cannot rotate when we tighten down the antenna. It can't. And I may want to get some M2 washers if those pull through. TPU usually benefits from having some washers, but we're going to go with it for now and see if it holds. And then what I like to do is just give the pigtail a little bit of a curl, a loop, to help sort of hold it in place. Let's see, which way should it go? It's a little further to the right side, so I'm going to curve it to the left and around. Yeah, just like that. And that's going to kind of keep it out of the way. You never want it to be kinked, but a little bit of a curl like that isn't going to hurt anything. And just look how perfectly that fits together. What a great design. So you pick the bottom piece and the top piece that match the parts you're using, and then they just fit together, and you don't have to print, you don't have to have a bunch of separate ones to match all the different combinations of antenna types. The next thing I'm going to do is install these camera plates. We'll put them in place, and I'm going to think about how I want to secure this capacitor. I would really not like it to just be flopping around loose, but I can't really zip tie it to the standoff because it's just not enough room. So I think what I'm going to do is zip tie it to the camera plate. So we're going to put it through that hole. Yeah, very nice. I'm pretty happy with that. If you've got the Caddx Vista in here, you may find that these little tabs are hard to get in. The reason for that is the Caddx Vista is slightly wider than a standard micro-sized camera. Some frames will make their camera plates wider, but then standard micro cameras are loose or need shims, and we didn't want to do that. So we've made these plates the same width of a standard camera, and that means they squeeze on the Vista just a little bit. It just makes it more secure, right? But it does mean you're going to have to squeeze the plates in to get the tabs to snap in. This is not a problem with the Nebula Pro or any other micro camera, just the Vista. Small price to pay for having the best camera. Hey there guys, Joshua from the future here. Joshua just finished recording this video and he forgot to tell you to put nuts on top of the stack. Yeah, you got to put nuts on top of the stack, otherwise your flight controller is going to be flopping around. So yeah, get that done. Here we go, moment of truth. We'll put the top on. Oh wait, I need the GoPro mount, of course. We've got these M3x6 countersunk screws, and they're going to go on these rear holes, which are countersunk. By the way, don't put the top plate on upside down. If you don't see countersunk screws on the rear, your top plate's on upside down. Those countersunk screws are to keep the screw heads from digging into the battery, among other things. And we got this Hero 8 mount, which Chris Ney sent me. So in order to use this, we will not be using the M3x6 screws that come with the kit. We're going to need longer screws, and you're going to have to source those on your own. Fortunately, I have plenty. And whenever I use screws through TPU, I also like to add an M3 washer, just to help keep the screw head from pulling through the TPU. TPU is kind of soft and flexible. All right, I'm going to go around, tighten down all these standoff screws. Now that everything is together, we can get our final tightness on them. Battery pad. Oh, and video antenna. Luminaire Axis is a good one. That's what I like to use on most of mine. If it's loose like this, it needs to be cinched down a little further. It has to kind of bite into the TPU. I'm going to use this wrench, but be very careful because it's easy to over tighten and damage the brass threads if you use a wrench. You just need it tight enough that the antenna doesn't pivot, and no tighter. I gotta set my camera's up tilt angle and tighten these screws to hold the up tilt angle in place. I usually use an angle of about 30 to 35 degrees for freestyle and more for racing. So then, the moment of truth. Did I accomplish my goal? My goal when I set out to design this perfect freestyle build was to create a freestyle quad that came in around 700 grams was my target. Less would be great, maybe more would be okay, but that was my goal. Did I accomplish the goal? Here it is, the moment of truth. I haven't weighed this yet. We're going to see it together. Here we go. Moment of truth. 416 grams dry weight with props and screws. And this big old honking GoPro mount. We could probably save a little there. It is what it is. That's probably how I'm going to run it. Battery, Race Day Quad 1000. Here, we'll use this one. These are the newer Race Day Quad 1000 milliamp hours. They're smaller. Why are they still 1000 milliamp hours? I don't know. That's the battery I'm running today. 603 grams. Respectable. And we'll put a GoPro on. 704 grams. And that's with a Hero 8. If I were to go with a Hero 7, which is actually what I usually fly, except I'm starting to break them and can't get them anymore. Except I managed to get a couple. I'd probably run a Hero 7 in real life. We'd be under 700 grams. We'd be about 695. That's amazing. Because I don't really feel like I gave up a lot to get down to that weight. This is still a really nice, tough frame. We don't have any like fragile 20 millimeter ESCs. It's still a pretty typical build. I'm super excited to go fly it. But you've already seen it fly, right? I put that at the beginning of the video. So there's nothing to do here but say thank you. Thank you to you for watching this video and for hopefully building this quadcopter. Thank you to all the companies who helped make this possible. Lumineer for the frame, Get FPV for the props, FPV Cycle for the motors, Race Day Quads for the flight controller, RunCam for the camera, and Rush Tank for the VTX, and Immersion RC for the receiver at least. And thanks to all the people who helped along the way. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Have you built this? I want to know your thoughts. How did it work out? I hope it's good. But either way, thanks for watching. Happy flying. What are you doing in here? The least you could do is subscribe or join my Patreon or like just here's another video I picked out for you. Jeez.